is Crystal Center Brown. I'm going to share a poem with you today called "Oh, the Places We Will Go." There is a place, perhaps high up on a hill. Everyone can see it, but they can really feel the experience they have when they encounter this place, with smiles on their faces grounded in knowledge. There is a place where families can gather, supported and encouraged. There is a place where education is valued, where it is understood that education happens outside the classroom as well, where parents are given the tools they need to grow their children and allow them to succeed. There is a place that understands that early childhood educators have a different set of needs, and that pouring into them is perhaps planting a different kind of seed, one that we may not ever see grow, but one that we won't need to, because we will know the impact of community on education and how we will all work together to improve our situation. Our educators are our most valuable resource, but where is your place? Where do you fit? If you are in our community, you are part of this. All of us, no matter where we stand, will have to come together to embrace this plan of universal childcare and early learning, stable and supported families, thriving early childhood workforce, healthy and supported children, and strong and early childhood systems in every community. We know that in order to succeed, we have to start early. And once we are all on one accord, all the places we will go, our children will be supported, and our families will always know that we are all on the same team, working toward a common cause, seeing our children successful and improving our community at large. So join your heart with mine as we step into our new world, one that will make a difference to all the boys and girls that may come into our centers in search of a caring heart. We will be there to meet them and will give them their early start. So won't you join me as we embark in this new role? Because I can't wait to see our children and all the places they will go. Thank you.
Welcome to the 2021 Policy Exchange and Educare Learning Network Policy Agenda Launch Party. My name is Sarita Robinson, and I am the Director of Advocacy at Educare DC and a member of the Educare Policy Work Group. Thank you all for being here on such a significant day during such a critical time in our nation's history. And thank you, Crystal Center Brown, for kicking us off in such a meaningful and inspirational way. Let's all take a second and connect our collective power to Crystal's words. Please reflect on her performance. What are you thinking about? Now summarize that into just 3 to 4 words and put it in the chat. While you are all blowing up the chat, I would like to welcome everyone joining us from the Educare Learning Network. If you aren't familiar with the network, I promise that you will be by the end of the session. Today, we will all hear directly from some of the parents of the thousands of young children who attend one of the 25 Educare schools located in 15 states, the District of Columbia, and on the tribal land on the Winnebago Indian Reservation in Northeast Nebraska. We will also hear from staff and leadership from across the network. On behalf of the Educare Policy Work Group and Start Early, the network's backbone partner, I would like to welcome all of the participants who have joined today to celebrate the launch of the first ever Educare Learning Network Policy Agenda. We celebrate this launch, not just because it is a first for our network, but because it represents how all early childhood policy priorities should be developed moving forward, with families and the early childhood professionals leading the way. If we are to build our system back better, it must be built to the specifications and in response to the needs expressed by those who have the most to gain and the most to lose. If we are to create communities where all children and families thrive, then we must all be willing to listen, to learn, and to roll up our sleeves. Over the next hour, we will learn more about the priorities identified by the Educare Learning Network, the big ticket items that our parents, our staff, and our leaders know will help to ensure that all families thrive. We will hear directly from network speakers as they share their perspectives on these priorities and their experience with the power of advocacy. And finally, Because we know that this journey didn't just start today and it won't end tomorrow, we will hear from a guest speaker who can share her perspectives over the long arc of a lifetime of activism and advocacy. With that said, I would like to introduce Keith Lederman, co-chair of the Educare Policy Work Group. Hi, Keith.
Throughout its history, the Educare Learning Network has utilized its unique lens to shape and enact policies affecting children and families and our country's most important early learning programs. Policy and advocacy work across our network aims at better supports for young children and their families and access to high-quality early learning. Our parents, staff, leaders, and partners advance this work at the local, state, and federal levels in partnership with state and federal advocates. Several staff from Start Early's national policy team are actually embedded in the Educare Learning Network division to support these efforts. The Educare Policy Work Group, for which I am a co-chair, promotes policy priorities that increase access to equitable and effective early learning and development for young children and their families within the Educare Learning Network and beyond. With guidance from the Educare Policy Work Group, the network has developed our first ever policy agenda that builds on our Educare policy framework and describes the policy priorities identified by parents, staff, and school leaders across our network. We call these policy priorities the Educare 5. Starting early this year, the Educare Policy Work Group engaged with people across the network to help identify what matters most to families, teachers, caregivers, and those who support them. And thanks so much to all of you who've contributed to this conversation, completed the priority ranking tool, and provided such rich, valuable information about the issues that matter most. It is thanks to this authentic collaboration and the tireless efforts of our members, even amid a global pandemic, that I am now proud to unveil the Educare 5 public policy priorities to ensure that all families thrive. Thank you.
At Educare, we believe every child deserves the opportunity to be successful in school and in life.
Sabemos la necesidad y sabemos que hay esperanza.
Now is the time to make once-in-a-century advancements to our early childhood systems. Our voices reflect our lived experience and fuel us to drive change.
Ahora, presentamos la Educare 5.
5 public policies that matter most.
Para el futuro de nuestras familias y la fuerza de trabajo de los educadores en cada comunidad.
The Educare 5 builds on our extensive expertise to highlight how public policy must ensure all young children and families thrive.
We're here to talk about the new Educare Learning Network policy agenda. It was developed with your voice and the voice of others. It builds off of our Educare 2018 policy work group, and the timing couldn't be better for a policy agenda that is focused on Educare's 5 priorities. It reflects the need to rebuild and transform early learning and care in communities, states, and at the federal level to truly meet the needs of children, families, and early learning staff on the ground.
Priority number 1, universal child care and early learning. Families must have access to high-quality, culturally responsive early learning and care at no or low cost in settings they most prefer during times they need care.
What excites me the most and gives me hope about the policy agenda is that other families outside of myself will have the opportunity to receive high quality care, and we can help spread the word to others that can benefit from our program.
La prioridad número 2 son las familias estables y con apoyo. Los niños pequeños y sus familias necesitan recursos financieros adecuados para acceder a la vivienda, cuidado, servicios y apoyos para prosperar.
This is an opportunity to transform our systems and institutions by centering children's needs and assets. This policy agenda means that in partnership with others, I will continue to address the racial disparities in workforce compensation, wealth and asset generation, and ensure that children have access to anti-bias, anti-racist, culturally grounded early learning settings. And most importantly, children are born healthy and thriving.
Priority number 3, a thriving early childhood workforce. Early childhood teachers and staff should be well compensated and supported in order to promote young children's learning, health, and development.
We know now more than ever before the importance of universal access to 3 and 4-year-old preschool and the importance of a strong and quality early childhood workforce. We feel that the Educare Learning Network's policy agenda allows us to extend this conversation beyond Flint and Genesee County, beyond Michigan, to let people know throughout the country, throughout the world, that early childhood educators are educators. Learning starts early, and these elements are essential to building strong families, strong children, and strong communities.
Priority number 4, healthy and supported children. Young children deserve consistent access to the physical and mental health supports and services they need to thrive.
I would like the decision makers to not only see the circumstances that families find themselves in, I would like for them to see the faces, the living environments, the mental, the medical, the health needs of the people of the communities that this will affect.
La prioridad número 5 es contar con sistemas sólidos para la infancia temprana en todas las comunidades, colaboración y coordinación entre sistemas de salud, sistemas de apoyo a la vivienda y recursos educativos para proporcionar la continuidad de la atención, servicios responsables y políticas de elegibilidad para las familias.
We need everyone, all of us, to get involved and stay engaged, because we know that our parents and practitioners bring a unique voice and authority to speak to federal, state, and local policymakers about how policy plays out at the operational level, the needs of young children and families, and how quality, affordable, and accessible early education programs contribute to lasting economic and social returns for our communities, for our states, for our entire nation. So let's do this, y'all.
Hats off to you, all of you at Educare. It's so great to be a national partner with you all, and we hope that everybody will get on board, because we know that what you're striving for is what we are all striving for at 0 to 3, and collectively we need to get our acts together to make sure that we do all that we can for babies and families and the early learning workforce. So thanks, and let's get to work.
Únase a nosotros para instituir a los formuladores de políticas a priorizar lo más importante.
Visit educareschools.org to learn more and take action with the Educare 5.
The Educare 5 would not be possible in conception or action if not for the efforts of Educare parents and families. Hi, I'm Rhonda Kaiser, School Director of Educare Central Maine. Parent leadership and advocacy efforts across the network, such as our parent ambassador programs, foster transformation in parents, policy, and communities. Educare parent ambassadors and leaders are motivated by concern for children and are a powerful force for equity and greater opportunity. Our parent leaders inform and influence lawmakers and agency leaders, educate, train, and mobilize other parents, engage in the legislative process through communication with lawmakers and providing testimony, have a voice at key policymaking tables, contribute to the development of state and network policy agendas, and most importantly, advocate for what they believe in. Through these experiences, our parent leaders also benefit through skill development and an increased sense of self-efficacy. Let's hear from some of these amazing parents right now.
Hi, my name is Renice Ivory Sawyer. I live in Denver, Colorado, and I am the community liaison for the Parent Ambassador Program at Clayton Early Learning. This is a comprehensive strategy that is highly important because it will help close the opportunity gap From school to home, my children, along with other marginalized little ones, are finally being considered with a holistic approach and an approach that lets me know that the complexity of our lives as people of color are taken seriously for our children's education's sake. Advocacy has impacted my life by helping me develop a deeper understanding of what real advocacy looks like on a community, city, state, and countrywide level. I'm involved in advocacy more than ever, and I developed a more solid belief in creating change that has inspired people around me. To those who want to get involved, find a child care issue that you're passionate about. Then find out the best way for you to do your part in creating a path of success for generations to come. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Michael Israel Mosley. I live in Waterville, Maine. I'm a parent ambassador, a policy council chair, and the liaison to our governing board. My top priority right now is universal childcare. And the reason for that is very simple. If you're a single parent in our state, you make about half what a single person does. And if you ask parents, they'll tell you exactly why that is. You need a job to get childcare, and you need childcare to get a job. It's a vicious cycle, and it's only gotten worse since this pandemic. We need an across the board investment in all of these things, not just to save it for now, but to fix it for the future as well. Engaging in policy and advocacy work has been some of the most rewarding work that I've done in my life. I've gotten to see parents grow, not just as far as early childhood education is concerned, or advocating for things like budgets or access, but how they internalize advocacy and how they have seen themselves as working as an advocate outside of early childhood education. I've seen parents grow and become advocates in their workplace, in their neighborhoods, and to fight against sort of like systemic barriers across the board. It's really, really uplifting to see people find that power within themselves. And if anybody else wants to get involved, I would suggest just doing it. If you're a parent, figure out where your policy council is. See if your education center has a parent ambassador network that it can connect to. If you're a staff member, go and talk to your parents. Get them involved. Talk about talk about the reality of things behind the numbers and have those conversations and start building those relationships so that we can actually stand up together and get this done.
As you can tell, Educare parent leaders are instrumental change agents in policy and within their own families. But they are not alone. Across the Educare Learning Network, our staff, teachers, school leaders, family support specialists, and others are also a strong voice in policy and advocacy. Let's hear from a few other incredible network members who have strengthened their community, the network, and their own leadership skills through advocacy.
Hi, my name is Brittany Howard. I'm from Kansas City, Missouri, and I hold a co-teacher one position at Educare Kansas City's Project Eagle. Of the 5 Educare priorities, the thriving early childhood workforce really stood out to me because as part of teaching staff, I feel like we are the glue that kind of seals everything together when it comes to connecting and building relationships with children and families. I think the advocacy is so important around this priority because most times teaching staff aren't advancing professionally due to their um, educational backgrounds. And sometimes those opportunities aren't always available internally, or it may be a financial strain for teachers to even pursue it. So I think it's important for leadership to hone in on those experiences that teaching staff have, especially those experiences from teachers who are from the communities and um, truly a part of those communities because they hold, they have something valuable, and that's a genuine connection to the families and children that they serve. And I think it's very important to find value in that, especially when providing high quality services to children and families. So, any advice I would have for anyone who would like to see this priority put in place at the centers they work for is definitely ask questions about how this can be implemented and what suggestions could be brought to the table to see these changes happen. Um, because it's definitely important to think about every part of what it means to provide high quality services to children and families, and definitely um, find the value in those experiences.
Good afternoon. My name is Nikki Burnett, and I'm the Executive Director at Educare Springfield in Springfield, Massachusetts. I would like to take a moment to highlight the policy priority of building and supporting a thriving early childhood workforce. Children under the age of 5 spend over 30 hours per week with providers of early education and other care environments. The workforce carries on their shoulders the responsibilities of laying down strong foundations of literacy, social and emotional development, providing early detection and intervention to help mitigate the need for future special education and services, while maintaining a forward focus on how the children that leave their classrooms or care will fare throughout their educational journeys. That's a heavy banner to carry. I am humbled and honored that each day I get to witness these banners being hoisted high into the air on behalf of our youngest treasures. But I also witness our workforce working 8 to 10 hours per day and still falling behind, sometimes falling below the poverty guidelines that we use to determine eligibility for families to our programs. During the pandemic, we unfortunately witnessed our early education heroes being omitted from the Essential Workers Club, vilified and blamed for preventing the country from reopening. All the while, they continue to carry the banner of responsibility and service to our children and families. There are numerous songs that profess our children are our future, encourage us to look through the eyes of angels, and give us hope that they will dance. But what about the men and women who make those things possible for your children while you work in or further your education? As we have all heard, said, and will continue to say for a very long time, 2020 has put the spotlight on inequities in health, safety, access, and education, among other things. While we were all at a standstill because of global health dangers, many leaders quickly began the thought partnership around recovery, reopening, and what it would look like. Our economy was first forced to recognize what we already knew was true. Employees are parents first, and parents need to have their children in accessible, safe, and enriching spaces while they work. Advocacy around this issue has always been important, but we are at a great time of opportunity to have the decision makers to see this issue from their own place of need. The economy quickly realized that early childhood was integral to any steps toward reopening. The time is now to use our collective power to advocate for young children, families, and the professionals who support them. It is my mission and goal to use my voice to continue to lift up the early education workforce as the integral keys to keeping every industry in this world functioning. As I have had the opportunity to highlight their stories, disrupt misconceptions, and redirect conversations so that urgency is heard and understood, it has impacted me in my gratitude and in my leadership. For any advocacy work to be successful, it is crucial to recruit new advocates. As a leader and as an advocate, it is incumbent upon me to seek out opportunities to demonstrate and encourage staff and families to use their voices with us. I must support them in understanding how important their voice is. No one can tell their story better than they can. I would like to encourage leaders to be mindful that everyone will not have the same time or comfort to present on a webinar, call their legislators, or write letters to the editors. But be innovative, remain curious, and ask how others define advocacy for themselves. Meet them there and help them grow their own voices. I would encourage parents, staff, and caregivers to be bold in speaking for themselves and know that their voice in any iteration is what really matters.
On behalf of all of our participants today and the Educare Learning Network, I want to thank the Educare speakers. Thank you for sharing your stories and your insights, and thank you for your efforts. Our collective power exists because of you. Now, I would like to introduce a guest speaker who will share her experiences as an advocate and insights on how we might ensure our own resilience and stamina needed to move the Educare 5 to reality. Erica Huggins is a human rights activist, a poet, an educator, a former Black Panther leader, and political prisoner who has devoted her life to the equitable treatment of all human beings. She has lectured across the country and internationally on issues relating to the well-being of women, children and youth, restorative justice as the antidote to punitive justice, whole being education, and the role of spiritual practice in sustaining activism and promoting social change. You might be interested to know that from 1973 to 1981, Erica was the director of the Oakland Community School, the groundbreaking community-run child development center and elementary school founded by the Black Panther Party. The school's curriculum and the principles that inspired it became a model for the predecessor to the charter school movement. During this time, she was also the first woman and the first Black person to be appointed to the Alameda County Board of Education, which serves children with cognitive, emotional, and physical disabilities, as well as incarcerated youth. Today, Erica will share her personal experiences of finding life-affirming balance as an activist and a mother while on trial for her life. It is this balance that has continued to sustain her every day since. Her remarks will focus on everyone's capacity to find inner stability in the face of continual daily challenges so that we can create healthy ways to sustain ourselves. It is my honor to welcome Erica Huggins.
Thank you, everyone. And thank you, Saritha. Thank you, Nikki. Thank you, Jesse. Thank you to all of the technical people who helped to make this event as stellar as it is. I want to say a personal thank you to parents. The voices I just heard were so true and touching and revealing of the work we all need to do together. Thank you also to school leaders, funders, networkers. Thank you to everyone. And though there may be no children sitting with us here, or not very many of them, they're in our hearts. So thank you to all the babies and all the children and all the teens and all the young adults. This is their world. We've been listening a lot so far. So now I just want you to sit and breathe. Nothing fancy. You're already breathing. You're alive. So just relax your shoulders down away from your ears and focus on your breath. No hard work here. Nothing to think about. Except that there is goodness within each of you. Every human being is born with this goodness. So consider your own goodness. And as you breathe in, Breathe it out to any place in the world that may need it. You don't have to know the people there or speak their language. Just send your goodness. Breathe in and breathe out. And now bring it closer into the United States, where most of us are living. And breathe out your goodness to those babies and children who are still at the borders of our United States. Breathe out your goodness to their parents, their grandparents, and their families. You don't have to know their names or anything about them. Just send your goodness. Now, if you will, breathe that in and out at your own pace. And send your goodness to the city that you are in, the city where you work, or the city where you live. Could be two different cities. You don't have to know all of the people and all of their circumstances, speak all of their languages. You just can send your goodness. It is infinite. It's never depleted. Now, if you will, send your goodness to the neighborhood that you live in. You don't even have to know the people in your neighborhood or like them, actually. Just send your goodness that they are thriving, that they find joy in the moments of their days. Whatever I'm asking you to do, I'm doing as well. I live in Oakland, California, and I am sending my goodness throughout the city to all of the houseless villages, to the incarcerated youth nearby. Do it as you'd like in your city. And now, as you breathe in and breathe out, breathe in some of that goodness and keep it for yourself. Your beautiful body as it is, your brilliant mind, your generous heart. Breathe in and breathe out, and breathe in that goodness for you. Take a few deep breaths, and then we'll return to our, let's call it a walk and talk. I know that you can't engage with me. However, I feel as if I am engaging with you. So we're pretending, okay, that we're having a real conversation about real things in real time. So I want to tell you a little bit about me. And Saritha, thank you very much for your introduction. And by the way, Saritha, I grew up in Washington, D.C., in Southeast. And as a little girl, I was very stunned by the way in which the wealthier people who lived in Northwest lived, and the schools their children went to, and the schools available to me and my sister and my brother. And I wanted to do something about it, even as a little girl. And then as a teenager, I would go and help people learn to read at the recreation center a few blocks away from my house. Later, as Saritha mentioned, I joined the Black Panther Party, but what sparked my interest in systemic change is looking at it every day, looking at the inequities, and not just feeling or complaining about them, but wanting to do something to serve the world. And so at age 15, I went to the March on Washington, the March on Washington in 1963. And I was so struck by what I saw and touched. So many people, so quiet and listening so intently to the speakers. And I noticed that the speakers were all men, by the way. I didn't know what to make of it. There were women there who I thought would speak, like Rosa Parks and others. And I was just making note. Isn't it good to be aware of the world you live in? You don't want to wallow in what is not quite right, but just to know it, be aware of it. And so while I was there, I noted that at one point, Lena Horne, song person, activist, actress, moved quickly to the microphone and sung 2 syllables, freedom. And when she sung those syllables, silence fell like a blanket over everyone. And in that moment, my desire to make change in the world gelled. And it wasn't my mind or even a feeling. This vow arose that I will serve people for the rest of my life. And so I began looking for ways that I could serve. And I knew for sure that it had something to do with families, with children, with young people. And so when I was a college student at a historical Black university called Lincoln University outside of Philly, I heard about the Black Panther Party. You see, we being aware of our world and how it works means that we ask questions, not to belittle or dismiss, but to gain knowledge of the truth of a circumstance. And what touched me about the Black Panther Party is that what I was reading in a magazine article said that it was for all poor and all oppressed people. Oppressed meaning that the systemic inequities were ones that they live in every day, every moment of the day. And also they provided programs in community, educational programs, health programs, mental health programs, plumbing programs, senior programs, teen programs. There were 60 community survival programs of the Black Panther Party, and I wanted to be a part of it. And so my boyfriend at the time, John Huggins, who later became my husband and the father of our firstborn child, he and I drove together across the country. I was 19. He was in his early 20s, and we looked to join the Black Panther Party, and we did in Los Angeles. And to make a very long story short, we joined the Black Panther Party and became everyday workers in community. Whatever people needed, because we didn't know without asking them. Let me make a point here. We can't tell people what they need. They know what they need. People are the experts of their own lives. So the way that we worked in community was to ask people, well, if you are wanting to get access to your incarcerated brother, we have a busing to prison program. Would you like to be on the list to go to the local prison? We didn't tell the person to do this. We asked, and we gave access and opportunity, as one of the parents said. At one point, John Huggins became a student at UCLA because there was a specific program called the High Potential Program for Black and Brown students. And he was a member of the Black Panther Party and a student with my friend Alprentice Bunchy Carter. Another long story short, because of his advocacy on the campus and because the federal government did not like us, they didn't want us to feed children. As a matter of fact, that was said in an FBI memo. I'm not concerned, J. Edgar Hoover said, about the Black Panther Party members asking to defend their communities. It's that breakfast program that is dangerous. How's that so? There are people who don't want change. As a matter of fact, would prefer to go back in history. And there are people who want change and want to move forward, want to bounce, spring, imagine themselves in a bright and caring future. We know this now because we've been experiencing a parallel pandemic, haven't we? The COVID pandemic, and that which has opened us to the existing inequities that have been around for hundreds of years. Not just for African American people, not just for Asian American people or Indigenous people or Latinx people, but for poor and white people as well. Parallel pandemic. Are you feeling me? So, the FBI was really interested in, as they said, destroying us, neutralizing us, which was the purpose of their internal program in the FBI called Counterintelligence Program. And as the result, they orchestrated the murders of John Huggins and Alprentice Bunchy Carter. I was pregnant in the year before John was murdered. I mentioned our firstborn child, a baby girl. And she was born in December of '68, and John was killed in early January of 1969. Hearing my story, are you thinking perhaps that there are stories about the people that you serve that you don't know Of course, you can't just walk up and ask a person, what's your story? I'm intentionally telling you mine. Because in that moment on January 17th, when John and my friend Al Prentice were killed, I became, without two of my best friends, a widow and a single mother. And some of us still have ideas about why people are single mothers without knowing, because we have these ideas, these assumptions, these biases that we can uncover in our own hearts. I have to do that every day. Arrowing forward in history and a number of long stories, I figured out how to survive and heal my heart. Where did I do that? I was incarcerated because the FBI orchestrated an event where a man was killed. I did not kill him or have anything to do with his death, but I was arrested and held without bail for 2 years, unable to see my baby daughter at all. And because I could not see her at first, I thought, I can't do this. And then I found out I could see her for 1 hour each Saturday. And I thought, how will I go and be with her without crying the whole way through? You know, when we face challenges in our lives, our education doesn't matter. Our academic education doesn't matter. Our hearts are broken, and the suffering takes the uppermost place in our minds. And I decided that I would sit still and breathe. I was 21. I said to you, I was a grieving widow and the mother of a very small child. And so as I practiced sitting and breathing every day, I became able to be with my daughter. That was the first priority. And not cry. I was able to be present in the moments with her. You following me? Absolutely present. Of course, when that hour was over and my mother-in-law, Elizabeth Huggins, who I just still love, although she's passed on, for driving from New Haven, Connecticut to the women's prison in Connecticut, where John was raised. New Haven is where he was raised. I thought, I'll keep doing this. Even if I cry all the way back to my solitary cell, I'll keep doing this. And it will have benefit beyond me. And it has. I understand the nature of suffering, the nature of loss. And I know there is access to joy. There is joy in the children that we birth. There is joy in the children that we adopt. There is joy in the children that we learn from as we call ourselves teachers. We're really learning from children and their families. So I tell you this story because I want you to know I don't come proposing to be the expert and professional on early childhood education, though I did learn some things at Oakland Community School for those 9 years that I served as director. I am the expert of my own life as a woman of color, as a mother, and now as a grandmother. Yes, my daughter is fine, and she has 2 sons. And we talk often about the future we want to see for her young Black sons, a future that does not include any level of harm. We all want that for our children, don't we? We don't want harm to come to them. But we live in a very violent world. So it's best that we dispense with the harm in our hearts. It's best we do as much as we can while working to promote systemic change. I feel like I spent a long time telling you my story, but I think sometimes it's important because then we are connected. We all have stories, and we don't want to hold on to the old ones forever, especially if they constrict our hearts. But it helps us to serve, doesn't it? Thinking that if I have a story, someone else does as well. So, what can we do in this time of parallel pandemic? Because in parts of the world, the pandemic is still surging. And of course, the parallel pandemic means that we are still suffering from the impact of history on our present moment, where systemic racism and other inequities of all kinds have just shown their faces everywhere. So what can we do? It's not hard. We are powerful people, all of us, especially educators. We can think about how we can take care of ourselves by cultivating our own sense of self-worth. We are valuable on the planet, every single one of us. And if we have the great good fortune of having children and grandchildren, we're even more valuable because we are naturally mentors and guides. If we are educators and we don't have biological children, we have all the babies we've served over time. And if we're leaders in the field of serving those who serve the children, we can act as if all these children are our very own. So what about the children? It's about them. And teachers know this and come out of pocket often to express how much they value children. How can we take care of our minds? We can sit still during the day. You got 2 minutes. Even if you're in a meeting, you can notice your breathing. So you bring yourself back to the anchor of power within you. You can speak up when the time is right, rather than waiting for somebody else to do it. You can do it compassionately and with empathy. A 5-year-old girl told me that empathy isn't pity. And when I asked her what she meant, she said, "You're not feeling sorry for a person. You just stepping into somebody's shoes, their big old shoes, and walking around in them for a while." I love that. I can still see that little girl. What a teacher. And the parents I talk to, some of them right now are frightened for their boys and their girls in the classroom, in the streets, on public transportation, going into a grocery store, walking down the street, because we need to face where we are in history and do a little inner survey about how we can be helpful in the place that we're in, the work that we're doing, in the skin that we're in, with the people that we're with, and the skills and experiences that we have. We can also notice the quality of our self-talk. I'm talking with you today. And what are you talking about as you are listening and talking with me? We're always having multiple conversations going on. It's called the mind-body conversation. It's happening all the time. We can heal our hearts, or at least begin it, so that when we're in the company of children and families, we're not bringing the unprocessed stuff of our lives to them. It's hard work, I assure you, but we can do it. We're powerful people. What am I talking about? I'm talking about resiliency, the ability to bounce back. For centuries, some of our people have done that. And when I say our people, I'm looking back at around the globe and all of our, as we say, ancestors. We are indebted to them and connected with them. And sometimes we're inspired by them. And here we are. We can spring forward. We can discover a new way, even though the systems are still in place, and we all hope that they will change, the systems that created the inequities that we face. We can do our part while we're here on planet Earth. We have the capacity to go to the heart of a thing, to the heart of the community, and strive to learn from the challenges, not to dismiss them, not to act like they're not there, to learn from the challenge. What is it teaching us? What do we know about it? We can question, unpack it, as a friend of mine loves to say. We can be spirited, which is connected to being joyful, but we can't always be joyful. But we can have enthusiasm about what we're doing. We can use our fierce imagination. And I put fierce before imagination because sometimes our ideas are the ones we are waiting for, and we need to share them. And leaders need to listen. Listening is such a great human communication. Just listening. We can recognize the root of a problem and do the right thing at the right time with the right people. I said that before, but I couldn't say it enough. So we go to people and ask them what they need. And when they tell us, we go, well, you know, maybe not. Well, at least we try not to say that, but then we take into account what people are telling us. And I know that this network and the services you provide, you do that as best you can. But there are people who are policymakers who need to be convinced. You can convince them. I've had to do it. That's another long story. You can convince them. You can speak from your heart and believe in the power of your own mind. One of the other things that we can do is develop elasticity, like a rubber band, elasticity in decision making. That, sometimes the rules are a little confining, and we can look at new ways of protecting our rules, our guidelines, our policies, our procedures, without being punitive or judgmental or keeping progress from happening. We can listen. I said that. We can talk to one another. We can have real conversation with one another, like we're having today. We can help make the invisible visible. And if everybody can't hear it when you speak about it, that's all right. Somebody will. Yes, we can say yes. We know that the word no is in every language, but we can say yes more and more. And if we are in leadership, we can do what a young woman told me recently. We can cede power. That doesn't mean submit and let someone take over your role. It's just you step back a little bit and get out of the way so that goodness can reign. I want to end by telling you a few things. I'm not ending right away, but I'm warning you that I'm not going to be able to talk for much longer. How are you doing? Are you breathing? Are you taking care of yourselves? You can stand and stretch and sit back down. Nobody can see you. What tools do you need at home and at work to take care of yourselves? Make a little note for yourself. Just make a little note. What do you need to take care of yourself? At home and at work. And how will you go about making that happen without waiting on someone to do it for you? What support do you need at work to care for the people who you are serving? Do you need greater supports? Can you let someone know? Compassionately? We're at a time when services have been depleted for at least a year or more in various ways. And sometimes it's not the simplest thing to get the support that we need, but I'm talking about basic things, very basic, that may or may not cost money. So make a note for yourself. If you can think of something that you can talk to leaders in your field about, or to your supervisors, or to the boards of the organizations you work with, or to the network. Maybe you have a great idea whose time has come about communicating more fluidly among the service providers and the networking organizations. I really like the Early Learning Network policy framework. And what stood out to me about it is its familiarity. We've been asking for these things forever. And now you will make sure that they happen. You, the leadership, the funders, of course, the policymakers themselves, and most especially the educators, the teachers, the teacher aides, and the parents. I was thinking as I was listening to the parents, wouldn't it be a great thing to have a town hall of children in your area, in your state, those 15 states plus DC, and let children tell you what they want? It would be lovely. And it would be really empowering for them. Yes, we have been asking forever. I was at Oakland Community School from 1973 to 1981, and we were talking to the California State Department of Education about what we were doing and how to make this kind of whole being education and the one-stop shop for services available to all Californians in the hope that this model could spread around the country. And the assistant superintendent of public schools at the time thought it was the best idea. And he proposed it. And it came back no. But let's hope that in 2021 it's going to happen. It can with all of us working in concert. And I wish you all goodness with that. I'm going to tell you a story, and I'll end with the story. My favorite thing to do is to work with elementary school teachers. This uplifts me, inspires me. And when I'm sad about events in the world or don't know quite what the next thing is for me to do, when I work with fourth and fifth graders, which I've had the absolute honor to do in the last 3 years, because they want to know, what does it mean to want to be someone who makes change in our world? And this is a rainbow of children. This isn't just Black and brown children. It's all the children, because they're public school classrooms and some private schools as well, or charter schools. But I was talking to a teacher one day, and she said she'd had a conversation with her fourth graders about superpowers. You know, we all love the idea of superpowers. We adults, we love it too. We just don't often talk about it. But the children always do. So she asked her class, what superpower do you want to have? If you could have any superpower, what would it be? And one little girl said, I'd love to be invisible so that I could go anywhere and just help people. And they wouldn't have to know that it was my idea to help them because they couldn't see me, but they would know that I am there, that something is there supporting them and getting the help they need. One little boy said, I'd like to be able to fly because I could go to places that need me and I could get there in a second or in a minute if it's far away, and I could be of help. And then another little girl, and these were Black and brown children, by the way. By that I mean they were African American. Some of them are from Africa. They were Latinx, so they were all over the Latin American, Central American, South American diaspora. They were indigenous to the United States. And by the way, indigenous people are the only non-immigrants on this land. Thank you so much for holding the land. So these children were so excited about this idea of superpowers. And then this one little boy, and my teacher friend got choked up as she began to tell me about this little boy. She said he never talked. He could talk, but he never spoke up in class. He was a little brown boy. And he spoke up and he said, I already have a superpower. And the teacher said, well, what is it? And he said, it's love. My superpower is love. And if I could express it in the way that I want, the whole world would change. Isn't that beautiful? He didn't have any degrees. He wasn't leading anything. He wasn't making policy yet. I want to leave you with this thought inspired by those children and by incarcerated youth. It's something that some teenagers asked me one day, well, Erica, what can we do? We're young, we're teenagers. What can we do to make change in the world? And inspired by the superpower of love, this is what I said. And it's what I'll end with. Love is a great expression of power. Use it to transform your world. Thank you so much for talking with me and walking with me. And I wish you all good things in the work that you do, and that the policy framework actually becomes reality across the land. It's hard work. Yes, it's hard work. But there are friends that you don't know yet who will be there to support you. Again, thank you. It was an honor to be with you. And I will turn everything back to Saritha or Nikki or whoever is meant to take the mic from me.
Nikki, hello. Ms. Huggins, thank you so much. I actually have my script written out and I'm like, I don't even know what to say anymore. Thank you so very much for touching my heart and touching my spirit in what you say. Thank you for sharing your experiences and your insights. And thank you so much for your commitment to the long arc of the fight for equity and opportunity for all. You know, it's so critical for us to seek what restores us, as you so eloquently told us. We have to do this so that we may persevere. We all know that each of the priorities in the Educare 5 requires deep commitment, strong partnership, and orchestrated action. And you have showed us that we all have it within us to do that. And I love where you said love is the greatest expression of power, because yes, it is. We know what it takes for all of us to join our hearts and minds in giving young children and families the best chance for success in life. And at a time where we all face so many unprecedented challenges, and some challenges that have been with us for decades, but we have to listen to each other. And when we do, we will learn and arise stronger and wiser. As we grow in number and in volume, we will make our voices heard and our priorities will be realized. Crystal Center Brown, who is a personal friend of mine, and I fangirl everything that she does, she invited us all to imagine all the places that we will grow, that we can go. I invite you to join us in the work of lifting our voices and hearts and minds to make the Educare 5 a reality. Within the agenda, there are specifics for how you can stay informed and how you can create opportunities to advance your priorities. How will you connect with others working to ensure that all children and families thrive? How will you use your voice in this movement and to encourage others to do the same? We have also dropped this information into the chat. I encourage you to please engage with us. Together, we will uplift the voices and expertise of the family and caregivers and teachers. We've heard from some of our guests that they are willing and able to be in this fight for their own lives, and we must do that with them, and we must give them space and opportunity to do so. And finally, please remember Ms. Huggins' message that advocating for yourself and others takes energy and effort, particularly in these times of dire crisis. Finding even small ways to restore and replenish yourself will build our collective resilience. We ask you to please show yourself the same grace that you so selflessly show to others. You do it so kindly in our classrooms and with each other. So we want you to please put yourself first in your own breath. Together, we will create a brighter future for all of us. We are asking you, there's going to be a poll that's going to show up in the chat, and we want you to share with us how you will take action to push forward the Educare 5. And with that, I will toss it back to our wonderful MC, Miss Syretha. Thank you so very much, everyone.
Wow. Thank you so much. Thank you all for joining us today. What a wonderful launch to the Educare 5. We hope you benefited from participating, and we look forward to continuing to partner with you to make the Educare 5 a reality. Before you sign off, we have one more quick participant poll. Please take a minute to respond. Again, thank you so much. We hope to see you at more policy exchange sessions happening this week. Have a great day.